This book really started back in 2005 because that's when my interest in the intersection between business impact and social impact was born. And before I moved into academia, I worked in marketing at the Coca-Cola company. And in that time, I was a marketing director in Shanghai for Coca-Cola. And we made a trip to Inner Mongolia to participate in some of the community activities that the company had. And in doing so, I spent a day at an orphanage. And reflecting back on that experience during my trip, I started to wonder, first of all, why I didn't know of these sort of social impact efforts that the company had. And why wasn't the company connecting those efforts in any way with the other means by which they competed in the marketplace, relationship with customers, consumers, etc. That began my curiosity into understanding when and how social impact investments could help business and how business can help alleviate some of the social issues that we have. That led me to a PhD dissertation and eventually a decade of research in that space with Sundar Bharadwaj, which eventually culminated into a body of work that we put together. And I had been teaching in classes. And in around 2022, 2023, I had a personal event in my life. I went through a cancer diagnosis and treatment. And those shocks in your life move you to get things done. I found myself with this body of knowledge and this passion for a topic that I thought was timely, but now an urgency to put it out there in the world. So that's what got me to eventually get the book done. Good growth, the pursuit of customer demand by creating meaningful and material social impact. In that definition, I'm really combining two things. The main one is the reason why most managers have their jobs, which is to grow their company, right? But I'm combining it with the realization that increasingly we have societal issues, either environmental or social issues, that require from the private sector to participate in solving. Think plastic pollution, think carbon emissions, think access to education. And good growth is a blueprint, but it's also a mindset for how to combine efforts by the company that seek to grow and drive profits with the difference that a company through its products can make in helping address some of society's more pressing issues. First of all, the idea behind the book, it's not new, right? What I just articulated as the definition is not a new idea. Managers and leaders have been exploring this intersection for decades. I think what we bring and why I think it matters now is a more clear perspective on the how-to. There's a lot of writings around why the private sector in general and companies more specifically should account for social issues in the way they do business, right? But a lot of times those discussions are under the shadow or the shade of a corporate social responsibility effort, not a competitiveness idea. So we approach this topic more from the standpoint of what can help a company compete and win. And why it matters, maybe even now more than in the past, is because we are facing issues. Specifically, we can think about water access, we can think about carbon emissions and climate change, we can think about plastic. We're facing issues that government or the civil society alone cannot solve. These are what economists call wicked problems, problems that are very complex and that are intertwined with business activities. Plastic in particular. It's a material that provides tremendous functionality and efficiency, but it's also destroying our planet and polluting our waterways and our food supply. So we need a way out. And that way out is through innovation. And that innovation takes place in the private sector, in the pursuit of profit. So that's why I think the good growth mindset and blueprint and tools can be very important today. Yeah, I think that the way we talk about it in the book is that we contrast the good growth approach that we describe, or we call it version 2.0, because there was a version 1.0 of efforts by companies to connect social impact with their brands and their products in the maybe things like 2004 to 2020 something, like 20 years. And those relied very heavily on finding a cause, taking a stand on a cause, communicating stories, emotional stories around social issues and what the brand believes. And that approach, while it had some successes, it also had many failures. And in this version 2.0, really comes out of research of what new companies and some innovators inside established companies are doing to connect social impact and business impact, but they're doing it differently from the version 1.0 in three ways. The first one is that they're really focusing on creating customer value, not in communicating brand values, right? And therefore, they're really focusing on what is it that customers need. And maybe they don't care about reducing emissions or energy consumption. They care about cleaning their clothes effectively. But if we create a detergent that allows you to wash your clothes with cold water and still get them as clean as you want, we both win. That's the example of Procter & Gamble and Tide and their whole effort towards shifting Americans' clothes washing behavior to cold water, significantly reducing energy consumption, but without really talking about energy consumption or climate change, talking about saving you dollar bills in your energy and helping you wash your clothes effectively. You see, that is focusing on customer needs, not brand value. Second is addressing the product or company externalities, not going out and searching for causes that may be relevant for consumers, but many times unrelated to your brand or your product, right? So focus on your externalities. And in fact, this is research from one of my colleagues, Dion Nickerson, on the Journal of Marketing, that did a very innovative and interesting paper. She shows how companies that do programs that are connected to their externalities are able to see increases in their sales growth. And importantly, those that do programs that are not connected to their externalities actually see a decline, right? It's a strong finding, reinforcing these ideas that in your pursuit of good growth, focus on your externalities, okay? And then lastly, is designing the solutions into your product, not into stories. So good growth is not about storytelling, even though storytelling may be embedded at times. Good growth is about products that simply work better. An example, the AirPods, right? We all have AirPods, not all, but we like those kind of products, and they're getting increasingly better. Now they translate automatically, etc. But here's the problem. When the battery of your AirPods starts to run down in about 2-year timeline, what do? And the reality is that you cannot do anything about it. You have to throw them away and buy new ones. And that is waste by design. I understand how that helps the company, but it significantly increases e-waste. And here comes a company in Denmark called Fairphone, that one of the ways in which they compete is by designing their technology products to be fixed. So they are equally elegant in their design, effective in the way they work. The main difference is that if your battery runs out, if your camera breaks out, all the pieces can be fixed. Again, extending the product life, reducing e-waste. That is embedding social impact into your product, not talking about it in stories. So those three things are focusing on customer value, addressing your externalities, and designing the solutions to your products. These are the things that we talk about in the book, and we illustrate it through a lot of modern examples and then techniques that companies can use to make this happen. I think achieving good growth has always been hard because it's ultimately about changing aspects of your business in a direction that addresses an externality. So you are by default making things a bit harder than they were under the status quo that was less sustainable. I don't think that today's environment makes the execution of good growth harder. I think what is happening in today's environment is that if you deviate from what's most important to shareholders, then maybe you're at greater risk of reputational costs. But our idea of good growth is in no way inconsistent with the pursuit of profit maximization. In fact, it enables it. And I think if you stay focused on that as a business leader, I don't think today's environment presents a particular challenge. In terms of customers paying more for it, in the past, because at times there is incremental cost associated with some products when they reduce the externalities, managers tended to think of customers' willingness to pay more as a sign of, should we do it? But increasingly, that's no longer a need. We see many products that are launching these type of solutions that are not coming at a premium. And I think companies are realizing that's the case, that when they price it at parity, not at premium, this can become a winner.